In today's show, we're going to be looking at the waiver wire, points leagues, category leagues, deep leagues, short-term ads, long-term ads, all that sort of stuff. Scouring the waiver wire, Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com and at Yahoo Sports Australia. And you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_bball and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. The first one of these shows for the year. I'm going to do these little mini shows. I think I do them 5 days a week. The schedule is at this point, we do Sunday night waiver wire shows. Let me just look at my schedule. Monday night, buy lows. Wednesday, sell highs. Is that right? So Monday night, buy lows. Tuesday night, sell highs. Wednesday, a points league show. And then Thursday will be a live question and answer show, which is streamed on YouTube and will get released as a mini podcast as well. So that's how these mini shows are going to roll. And the first one here, we're talking waiver wire. Let's talk about it now. All right. What I want to do, I'm going to break this into multiple areas. First up, we're looking at long-term ads for 9 category leagues. And these are all players who, based on our advanced roster percentage metric, are available in I think, over 50% of leagues. Now, Isaac Okoro is hurt today, but I still think he is a long-term ad. He was a little bit quiet in game 2. I think he's worth a look at a long-term ad. Kyle Anderson is a guy that has short-term value, really good short-term value, and should be added everywhere. But I also think he's got some decent long-term value. Who knows if Justice Winslow is ever going to be healthy? Who also knows if Justice Winslow is better than Kyle Anderson? I don't know that for sure. Maybe Kyle Anderson's better than Winslow and Brandon Clark. I'm not sure at this point. But I'm adding Anderson. George Hill as well is at least worth more than just a short-term stream. I don't know how long it'll last for Hill because he could get traded. He could be minimized for Teo Maledon for the Thunder, but he looks pretty good so far. Danny Green is far from sexy, but he has value inside the top 150. And Jay Crowder is a little bit shaky of an ad, but I think he can be a solid enough guy that's on and off of 12-team rosters. So there, a bunch of guys we're looking at there who could be long-term ads for 9 category leagues. If we want to look at points leagues, Mason Plumlee, points leagues is a little bit different because, again, most points leagues players are beginners. So the advanced roster percentage metric we use is more in tune with category leagues. And the overall Yahoo roster percentage number you see on this site is probably a little bit more indicative for points league. At least that's how I'm looking at it. So I'm looking at players here who are rostered in 50% or fewer leagues on Yahoo. Mason Plumlee, absolute must add. And if you're in a points league, Mason Plumlee should be added, or a category league, Plumlee should be added anyway. Alec Burks, must add across all formats. And for points leagues, he's like under 50% rostered. Ivica Zubac. I wouldn't say he's a must roster in every format, but for points, yes, I'd be adding him. Dylan Brooks, his game is much more suited to a points league than a category league. You still can have him in a 12-team category league. I wouldn't be that enthralled with it. But in a points league, he needs to be rostered in all of those. And Patrick Williams is rostered in quite a few category leagues. I think overall for points leagues, he's still available in quite a few of them. And I would make sure he is in my roster. So Plumlee, Burks, Zubac, Brooks, and Patrick Williams. For deeper leagues, Josh Okogie has got over 30 minutes in each of the first 2 games. These are category leagues, deeper leagues, 14 to 16 team leagues. Okogie has gotten over 30 minutes a night. Now, he's not great, but he can provide steals. And just being out there for that amount of time, unless you're Tony Snell, you're going to accumulate a decent amount of numbers. And I think Okogie's worth looking at. Nick Batum, at the moment, as a short-term ad for standard leagues, 12-team leagues, he's absolutely a short-term ad. Long term, I think he's more of a 14 to 16 team guy that will stick in that sort of a role, but short term, he's got 12 team value. Derek Jones Jr., to me, is not really a must-roster 12-teamer, but in 14s and 16s, he is available in a lot of those leagues, and I'd be adding him in those. And the same goes with Dorian Finney-Smith. Like Jones Jr., more of a streamer in 12-teamers, a short-term option, but in 14 and 16-team leagues in particular, these guys are available, and they should be rostered. And the same goes with Justin Holiday, who's rostered in like 2% of leagues or something absolutely crazy like that. Maybe I'm making that number up. I don't think I am. But let's have a look where I am now. He's rostered in 6% of leagues and 3% in our advanced metric. Ridiculously low for Justin Holiday. He should be rostered in all 14 and all 16 team leagues. So you see there is crossover here. Like Batum, great short-term 12-team ad. We don't know how it's going to work with Marcus Morris. But in a 14-teamer, you add him and you just ride him out for the rest of the season would be my guess. Next up, we're looking at some guys to drop. Long-term drops if you have these guys in 9 category leagues. Now, let's throw this disclaimer out here. This show is not exhaustive. It is not every single player who is available in your specific league or every player who needs to be added. It's not that case. Let's throw this out there now. If Darius Garland is around, he is clearly a must-add player across every single league. But the numbers that I've got on him suggest that he is rostered in most leagues. The wiki, Chris Boucher, yes, you roster him everywhere. Again, the numbers say that that's the case already, but if it's not in your league, you roster him. Patrick Williams, similarly, I mentioned him for points leagues. In category leagues, I'm rostering him. There are a number of those players who aren't sort of fitting into my cutoff point, because I've got to have a cutoff point somewhere. I can't go through and say, well, DeMarcus Cousins is rostered in 70% of Yahoo leagues, so throw him in as a must-add, because the majority of people watching this, he's probably already going to be rostered. But when I talk about drops, these aren't players that you go out and you just go, well, I'm dropping this guy. Because that makes no sense, right? It's when you're looking at, hey, there's an option here for me to add Darius Garland. Is Jeff Teague the first player on my list?
My name is Jeff.
Is he droppable? And to me, the answer is yes. Do I drop him for the sake of dropping him? No. Could he have short-term value? Yes. But it's when you're looking at the long-term scheme of things, these are guys that I would say, if you drop them, I don't think you're losing much. Jeff Teague. He's a backup at the moment. Kemba Walker's going to come back at some point, and that's going to hurt his value even more. He's rostered in too many leagues, and I tried to use a over 70% rostered metric for these guys as well, just so we could understand these are guys who are available or who are rostered in a ton of leagues, but shouldn't be. Rui Hachimura, he's out 3 weeks with conjunctivitis. It's a Marcus Smart level conjunctivitis there. I don't know where his eyes have been to cause that problem, but he's out for 3 weeks. He's not good. There's no point holding on to him. Yes, you put him in IR, no worries. Yep, you got your IR spot, don't worry, put him there, that's fine. But otherwise, get rid of him. Lou Williams, I'm not that high on Lou Williams. I don't think that he's all that good for a category league, and I think his roster spot's expendable. The pencil, Harrison Barnes. Barnesy. I'll throw these in occasionally. If you don't know where some of these drops or nicknames come from, I'll throw an occasional description in here. Harrison Barnes. The pencil, his initials are HB, the most common sort of pencil in the world outside of America, because you guys love having different naming systems for things, is called an HB pencil. So that's why he's the pencil. Barnesy, and that noise is from, just go on YouTube, this song called Big Enough, and you'll watch it and you'll hear it and you will almost assuredly piss your pants laughing. The last guy to drop here is Elfrid Payton. I was pretty high on Elfrid Payton to begin the season. I went, well, Tom Thibodeau, if you're going to start him, he's going to play 30 minutes and Payton's going to put up numbers. Well, Tom Thibodeau did start him, but decided, well, we don't actually want to use Elfrid Payton. And the writing is absolutely on the wall to me that Emmanuel Quickley is going to get this position at some point. And even now, with Quickley out, Payton's barely playing, and Burks is getting these point guard minutes. So if you want that, now Payton could be better than this, and he almost undoubtedly will be better than what we've seen in the first 2 games, but I'm trying to read the writing on the wall here. It's not a must drop. I'm not saying just go out and lose Elfrid Payton because you want to add Patrick Patterson. Like, that's not what we're talking about here. It's talking about, well, I'm trying to read what this means in the future. The fact that he's not playing at the moment and Quickley's got to come back, and I think Quickley's going to take this job at some point, means that Payton can be someone that we look to jettison. Next up, we look at guys to drop in points leagues. Rui Hachimura, I've already talked about. Duncan Robinson is rostered in far too many leagues, and that might seem blasphemous to say Duncan Robinson, who almost set a Christmas record for most threes made in a game. He just isn't a very good points league player. For as big as his numbers have been, he doesn't really provide much apart from high volume threes. Like, he's not a good points league player. Jeff Teague, we've talked about already. Nerlens Noel, I thought there'd be more of a minute split there. Actually, I thought he'd be the starting center based on what Thibodeau had done and said, but that wasn't the case. Now Mitch Robinson has that job, and there'll be nights when Noel plays more than Robinson, but it looks like at this point he's going to be relegated. And when Obi Toppin returns, who we'll talk about in a second, it's going to further impact Noel. So I reckon you can move on from him in certain situations. Even in category leagues, I'd be okay with moving on from Noel in certain spots. And the last guy, who's just rostered in too many leagues.
I don't want to hear any more about Obi-Wan.
I don't want to hear any more about Obi-Wan either. Obi Toppin. the amount of comments, hey guys, should I drop Obi Toppin for Darius Garland? Should I drop Obi Toppin for PJ Washington? Should I drop Obi Toppin for Chris Boucher? Like, yes, what the hell is Obi Toppin even doing on your roster? He should never have been on a 12-team roster. He should never have been on a 14-team roster. We've seen what he did to begin the season, and now he's out for a week to 10 days with a calf injury. No, he should not be on any roster. Not 12s, not 14s, maybe 16-team leagues. If anyone asks me, should I drop Obi Toppin anymore, I am not answering the question. The answer is yes. He should not be on your roster. Simple as that. I could look really dumb with this at some point, and Toppin's playing 30 a night. He's averaging 20 and 10. I didn't like him coming into the process. I didn't like him for fantasy. I don't like him now. Great bloke. Sure, no worries. I'm talking about what his actual NBA and fantasy production is. He's not a player to hold on to. In my, however misguided opinion, however misguided it may be, opinion. That's what I'm trying to say. Let's talk about some short-term ads. These are guys that over the next week I think are worth looking at and are available. Kyle Anderson, crushing it at the moment. Love what Anderson's able to do. He is in a massive short-term ad. Maxi Kleber, while Kristaps Porzingis is out. He's someone we look at. George Hill, I've talked about already. Nick Batum, someone, again, with Marcus Morris out and now Kawhi Leonard out with the face injury. Batum, if you're not caring about the points category, Batum is going to put up some real big ones. While Justin Holiday, I think while TJ Warren is a little bit limited and Oladipo is somewhat limited with his minutes, Holiday has some short-term value, but for deeper leagues, as I mentioned earlier, he's got that long-term appeal. If we want to take a look now at some short-term points ads, some of the same names as before: Mason Plumlee, Alec Burks. Bismack Biyombo is the starting center for the Hornets. He is a short-term ad. They played him a ton. No Vernon Carey, no Nick Richards in the last game. Biyombo played a lot, and that can have some value. It's also valuable in category leagues. Ivica Zubats and Kyle Anderson I talked about already. Let's take a look at the most popular ads. I don't know if this is the updated graphic. I should have refreshed that. Yep, there we go. In terms of, we track this stuff over at Basketball Monster. These are guys who have had the biggest spike recently in their roster percentage. We've talked about Kyle Anderson already. Add him everywhere. Nick Batum, add him everywhere. DeAndre Hunter's getting picked up in quite a lot of places. It's hard to judge. No Clint Capella. I don't know when he's going to be back. Danilo Gallinari has been limited. John Collins has been in foul trouble. Hunter's been good. His rebound rate's picked up, but it's not going to stay that high when Collins is playing full minutes and when Capella is back and when Gallinari is around. It's going to be hard for Hunter. I think he's worth having a look at, but I'm not going overboard. Bismack Biyombo, again, he's a nice short-term ad if you're looking for some big man stats. And Lou Dort. People are pretty excited about Dort, and I've got to play this sound because I need to take a breath.
Bort? Oh, come on, Bort?
Mommy, buy me a license plate!
No, come along, Bort.
Are you talking to me?
No, my son is also named Bort.
My son is also named Bort as well. And Dort looked really good in that first game. He attacked the basket hard. His shooting is going to be rough. I don't think we can underestimate that. But I thought that the minutes were obviously encouraging for Bort, and that's really a good start to have him at that level. And I think that I wouldn't say that he is 100% a must roster player. He's not far off that, but he's a guy. If we have a look, he's the 77th ranked player so far. He had 15 points, but that usage was encouraging. He had all of his free throws. He got a steal and a block. I probably would consider him a 12-team ad. And now let's look at players who are hot players at the moment. These are top 100 guys so far this season. Very limited sample size, but just talking about what can they provide. Tomas Satoransky, really good for the Bulls. Now, that was a blowout, so it's hard to say how much he's actually going to play. If you need assists, though, Satoransky has 12-team value. Mike Muscala, I thought he looked okay. I don't know why they're bothering to play him, considering where their team is. I'd much rather try and develop someone like Isaiah Roby. But if you're looking for some big man numbers, someone who can stream in threes, Muscala's an option. We talked about Dort already, who's playing well. Hunter playing well as well. They are worth short-term ads. And Kevin Huerter, similarly for the Hawks, it was red hot in that last game against the Grizzlies. He is at the moment the 82nd ranked player because he's shooting 55% and hitting 3 threes per game, but also 4 assists. And you can imagine the minutes coming down, the assist opportunities coming down when Rajon Rondo plays, and that shooting's going to come down. So while Huerter is putting up good numbers, I wouldn't necessarily be rushing to grab him because I think that he is going to be a casualty of the Capella Gallinari returns. The Rondo return as well. That's all going to have an impact on Fanapants Kevin Huerter. All right, that'll do it for me in this mini waiver wire show. Subscribe. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube. Give me a thumbs up. Leave a comment down below. Subscribe. Hit the notification bell. Follow me on all those socials. And hey, I know you guys don't want to, I don't want to tell people I'm a league. The more people that know about this show, actually, the better I can make it, the more time I can put into it, the more I can invest into it. So the more it grows, and it's grown heaps, and I thank everybody for sharing it. The more it grows, it does actually help because it helps me do more for this show, for you guys as well, putting in more time, more resources into it. But I appreciate that you don't want to tell people about it. But hey, it'd be great if you could. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.